Hi there, professional writers. Welcome to part 2 of week 3, which is talking about customer relations letters, specifically yes and no adjustment letters, as well as accentuating the positive. Now, I forgot to mention something in the last video. You'll need a complaint to answer in both your yes and your no letters, and I miscommunicated a bit last week. I had you write a complaint. And most people wrote a complaint from their business to another business, and that's fine because that's what the assignment sheet said, and I forgot to change that. A couple people wrote a letter to their own business from a random customer complaining, and that was kind of what I wanted you to do, but you'll need a complaint from a customer to your business to respond to in both your yes and no letter. And so I'll kind of review what needs to go in your complaint letter. And you don't need to write a complaint letter. I would sketch one out. Like, you don't need a formal one, but I would sketch out like what exactly the customer is complaining about and what they want before you attempt to write the yes and no letters. So let's see. I believe it was in this one. So before you write your yes and no letters, remember to kind of sketch out a complaint letter from a customer. So you want the customer to say exactly what they bought from your business, and the details of service or the contract, if there was a contract. You want to tell, you want the customer to say exactly what was wrong with the product or service. You want them to be detailed and specific. So for example, if you are a restaurant, maybe they got food poisoning. If you're a hair salon, maybe they had a bad reaction to a dye and their hair turned green. If you are a pet walking service, maybe someone's pet came back with a little scrape or something. Maybe they played too hard with another dog or something like that. Okay? So if just kind of say exactly what was wrong with the product or service, and then think about the inconvenience that the customer experienced, and then make sure the customer says what they want done and by when, because you're going to have to say yes to them as well as no to them. Okay? So once you've done that, you can write the yes letter, which I talked about in the last video. And then after you've written the yes letter, which is going to be easier, you're going to start to think about the no letter, which is going to be harder. And so in this video, I'm going to tell you and kind of walk you through how to accentuate the positive in your no letters as well as your yes letters, okay? So why should you accentuate the positive? And I have for you T-Rex jokes, which are all about accentuating the positive. Okay, people respond better when you're more positive, and they'll read more of your writing if you're positive. They'll be more persuaded if you're positive and if you accentuate the positive aspects. This will often create goodwill. And you want to avoid reader resistance. You want to avoid readers who will come back at you again and again and again, or customers who will come back at you again and again and again with their complaints. Or take it above you, or lodge some kind of online complaint that's no good, okay? So these are all reasons to write a business letter that accentuates the positive, even if you have to say no to what they requested. Here's some words to avoid. Don't say no right out, okay, to your customer. Try to avoid saying do not do this or do not do that, or we refuse to do this. Try to avoid saying stop using your product in a specific way. Try to avoid the word unfortunately, which just sets the person up for bad news. Or unable to, cannot. These are all ones to avoid. Let me just go back there. Error, damage, loss, failure, mistake, we cannot do this. These are all very negative language, And you really want to focus on the positive. So what should you say? Well, state what something is rather than what it is not. So you want to say, you know, we are very grateful for your business rather than, you know, we don't want you back in here in the future. Emphasize what you or your company or the product can and will do rather than what it cannot do. Okay? So instead of saying, well, your iPad is not built to do that, you want to say all these things that your iPad can do, or something like that. Open with action rather than apology or explanation. This is usually a good idea, although in the no letters, you might want to actually start with explanation rather than action. Okay? And avoid words which convey unpleasant facts. Okay. All right, so let's go into some practice. How can you change this? This is a very negative sentence. We are sorry that we cannot furnish the club chairs by August 16th. How can we change that to be positive, to be about something we can do? How about we would be happy to furnish the club chairs on August 17th? Okay, here's another example. I have no experience other than clerking in my father's grocery store. It's negative. It makes people think that, well, it's just kind of, it emphasizes the negative rather than the positive. And so how can we accentuate the positive here? I have extensive experience clerking in my father's grocery store. You're not lying. You're not using deceitful language. You're not deceiving the reader. It's just you're putting a spin on things. Okay, that you want to be a positive person. ABC dog biscuits will help keep your dog from getting sick. All right, so how can we change this? How about ABC dog biscuits will keep your dog healthy? Much better, right? And then we're going to skip this one because I'm already halfway through my time. Okay, so let's talk about your bad news customer relations letter. All right, so accentuating the positive is even more important when you're giving bad news, like in a bad news customer relations letter. Some of these might be something like you do not like a person's work or a company's products. You cannot do what a person is asking you to do. You can't do it for the price they want. Maybe another bad newsletter is that you're raising the rent or not renewing someone's lease. These are all examples of bad news that you have to deliver to someone. So in a bad newsletter, you want to try to accentuate the positives as much as you can. But also you want to kind of avoid being direct in a way that you prepare the reader for the bad news instead of just like hitting them over the head with the bad news like a sledgehammer, okay? You also want to ensure that the reader continues to read past the first line. And this is another reason why you don't give the bad news directly or up front, is because you really want them to keep reading. Okay, so when you write your no adjustment letter, here is the tone you should be striving for. Remember to keep the reader's needs in the forefront, to really maintain the you attitude. It's extra important in this letter, and it's going to be harder to do. Avoid the deceitful language and euphemisms that we discussed in the last video. Try to accentuate the positive as much as you can. Keep your tone professional and unruffled. And here's how I would go about organizing your no adjustment letter. Okay. In your first paragraph, thank the customer for writing and sympathize with the problem they experienced. Make sure you clearly identify the problem so they know you know what it is, and apologize for the inconvenience that they've experienced, okay? This is part of it. State the problem carefully to show that you understand what the problem is. And then you want to explain what happened. So if someone's hair turned green, why? If someone came back, some dog came back from a walk with a scrape, what happened? How can it not happen? How have you made sure it will not happen again? And then whatever they asked for, maybe they asked for you to pay for the vet bills, or maybe they asked for a free color, or maybe they asked for a refund. You got to give your decision clearly and firmly instead of saying something like, unfortunately, at this time, we cannot do what you asked for, which leaves the door open for them to kind of come back and keep bugging you. You just say something like, we cannot, give you the refund. We cannot give you the full refund. And then, I know this is kind of covered by the video, you want to leave the door open for continued business, and you want to turn that no into a yes. So an example of this would be like, maybe you say something like, we cannot give you the entire refund, but we can give you 50% off your next visit. Or we can give you half the refund. Or we can give you this other thing, okay? Turn that no into a yes. That's why you want them to keep reading. That's how you're going to keep them as a customer, if you show that you're willing to compromise and work with them. Okay? Good. So just a quick review over letter format. You want on Letterhead, and I showed you how to do the Letterhead in last week's video. So if you can't remember, you can go to those, or you can just kind of cut and paste from last week's writings. So you want the letterhead at the top, then you want the date, you want the addressee if they have a title, and their company address if they have one. So if you're making up the complaint, you're going to need to come up with a pretend address, a pretend person, and maybe you're going to give them a pretend title, okay? You want to make sure you have your salutation with a colon, not a comma. And then, the body of the letter, which I reviewed in the last slide, and then a complimentary close, sincerely, comma, your electronic signature, and then your name and your title. Remember, don't include your company information. That's in the letterhead, okay? Good. All right, so that's it. Review these videos if you're confused. There's also really good examples in the reading, and I gave you a whole bunch of samples in the resources. And so make use of all that good stuff. If you have questions, email me and let me know. And happy writing this week. Okay.